Good morning, dear students. This e-content video is on the poem Gone and Buried. This poem was written by Bakshi, and here we are going to analyze the poem. An introduction to the writer. Bakshi is a socio-linguist writer, a translator, and activist of Indian origin, presently living in Mako. Her works were published in over 3 dozen journals, most recently in Silver Birch Press, Wilderness House Literary Review, Kabul Press, Misfit Magazine, Peril Magazine, Asian Australian Arts and Culture, and Word Gathering, a journal of disability, poetry, and literature. She is a two-time Pushkar Prize nominee and the author of the recently released full-length poetry collection Burnt Rotis with Love, which was longlisted for the Rebecca Press Poetry Award in the UK and cited as one of the 9 poetry collections that will change the way you see the world by Basil in the US. About the writer, Bakshi's debut collection Burnt Rotis with Love was published in 2016 by Le Separago, and poems featured in the collection have appeared in many literary journals, magazines, and anthologies across the world. Bakshi offers a refreshing perspective on feminism and the wider world, enlightening readers with its undeniable South Asian roots. Burnt Rotis with Love gives a unique narrative for the stories it holds are the shared experience of women. Let us see the poem or the background of the poem. This poem, Gone and Buried, figures in the collection Burnt Rotis with Love. And the background of this poem is the mutual genocide that occurred during the partition. In August 1947, India was partitioned into 2 independent nation states. We all know that, the Hindu majority India and the Muslim majority Pakistan. Immediately there began one of the greatest migrations in human history as millions of Muslims trekked to West and East Pakistan, now called Bangladesh, while millions of Hindus and Sikhs headed in the opposite direction. Many hundreds of thousands never made it. As they were crossing from one country to the other or one place to the other, they started fighting amongst themselves, and we know that many were killed. So across the Indian subcontinent, communities that had existed for almost a millennium attacked each other in a terrifying outbreak of sectarian violence, with Hindus and Sikhs on one side and Muslims on the other. The carnage was especially intense, with massacres, arson, forced conversions, mass abductions, and savage sexual violence. Now, this poem was written keeping the partition of Punjab, India in mind. And the poet recalls, in her own words, "My parents are the children of partition that was responsible for causing the greatest transmigration in the history of humankind." I unquote. In this poem, Bakshi describes the collective ordeal experienced by women during the partition, which had been a moment of unforgettable trauma for millions of people in the subcontinent. Some 75,000 women were raped, and many of them were then disfigured or dismembered. Now let us analyze the poem. They floated away like flimsy paper boats, like lost fireflies, like chiffon sari pallus and dupattas with the wind. They were buried like unsent letters, hiding away, stuffed at the back of a wardrobe, like trapped bodies under a pile of disaster rubble. Now, Bakshi is a fervent feminist with a unique gift of language, as you can see in the lines here. And this poem is at its most beautiful from the onset. She compares the physically abused and tortured women to flimsy paper boats, fireflies, chiffon sari pallus, and dupattas. All these are fragile in nature, as we all know, which can be subdued easily. But women are truly always precious treasures buried and unnoticed by the bestiality of the patriarchal society, which never wished even to recall the plight of women caught in the vortex of violence. And they were simply like unsent letters or the trapped bodies under rubble. And these floated away buried stories of the many women, when will they be heard? When will the smell of their stories fill the stiff air? When will their stories get dug out of the rubble so they could bear witness to the past and the present? In these lines, Bakshi tries to make reference to the voices that have been buried away. It is an analogy, and she's making references to the voices that have been buried, a series of secrets that must not be spoken of. So all the secrets got buried along with the voices. She wants their unsung stories to surface and bear witness to the communal rights and faith-based killings that occurred during the partition. And Bakshi uses powerful words in a storytelling form to grasp the reader by the face and demand that they see modern society for femicide it is committing. And we know what is happening to women these days. The next few lines are as follows. Let women narrate their stories themselves. Let the body stench of their stories choke you, gag you a little. Let the secrets be unburied. Let the demons of these women's lives haunt you a little. Here we find that Bakshi calls for the history of women who have been buried like secrets to be unburied and to haunt you a little. It is these images that must be rescued from falling into an endless oblivion. She wants people to remember the sufferings of those women, okay, who were not heard at all, whose cries were not heard at all. And the oblivion is a space where one forgets that one has forgotten and willingly erased the realities that would cause the entire world to fall apart. And Bakshi converses with our collective memory and speaks of the violent histories that cannot be forgotten even if they are silenced and buried time and again. So thus we find that the title is very, very apt, and she has given this poem, or she has written this poem as a call to action for everyone to hear the horror stories, the hard times and the harder times that women have to talk about. And to conclude, we may say that the partition was responsible for causing the greatest transmigration in the history of humankind, and nobody can deny that. And it had a revolutionary spirit. And it also relates to a system, a social order, which is oppressive in nature. And this also indicates that the author's satisfaction in creating this collection of poems. And she has also not only written poems, but she has also written stories which deserve to be heard and spread. Thank you.